everybody. Welcome to Gen Con Online with Vorpal Board. Welcome to our seminar entitled How to Use Vorpal Board to Play Games Online. I am James Lang. I'm the co-founder of Vorpal Board. I am joined today by my always present compatriot, Mike Mady. Mike, how you doing today, man? You're on mute.
I'm doing great. Off mute. Loving life.
That's the universal constant of all internet communications. You're on mute. You're on mute. Um, Cool. So we are excited to be part of Gen Con Online. We just finished up the Kickstarter for this product that you're going to see today earlier in the year, and we were very excited to actually be in Indianapolis for Gen Con this year, but obviously the universe had different plans for all of us. So we're excited to be doing the Gen Con Online thing. We have a bunch of events happening, a bunch of games that we're going to be playing over the weekend. We're going to do this seminar, and then there's also another seminar of how to DM using Vorpal Board. So for tabletop RPG fans, that's going to be tomorrow afternoon. You can check for our full schedule on our Twitter account, or on Facebook, or on YouTube, or here on Twitch, kind of like everywhere. We're all over the place at vorpalboard.com, the whole deal. So what we're going to be doing today is not playing. Thank you for the follow, Ikisako. We are not going to be playing a game today. We do a lot of that on Twitch. We have a lot of that content on YouTube. We're going to be showing the sort of behind-the-scenes process of getting set up to play a game with Vorpal Board. A lot of people ask, okay, how long did it take to set up for some of your streams? How hard is it to use this product? And how hard would it be for me to get going? How much of it do I have to do in advance versus kind of the night that I play? So a couple quick details. Everything you see on this stream is Vorpal Board. So we're in a web browser. The video of Mike and I is fully interactable. You can move it around. I'm going to move Mike around a little bit here. I can move myself around. We can change the dimensions. We can rotate. We can get really crazy. I can be upside down. And we all see each other's pointers. We see where we're moving things. So Mike and I can, point to the same spot on the screen, and all those sort of cool virtual tabletop type functionality. The only thing you won't see in Vorpal Board that you can see on your screen right now is the James cam, which is in the top left corner. That is not part of Vorpal Board. I just did that for the Twitch stream. The purpose of that is so you can see my hands down here over to the left. So when we normally stream, it's just my face. But today I want you to be able to see what I'm actually doing over here. So that's why we have the James cam in today. And then we have a little bit of sort of graphics at the top and the bottom of the screen. But everything else you see is the product. So the way that Mike and I got connected is I sent him a link. He clicked it. We were connected for this video chat, and then we're both in the virtual tabletop. So that's as far as the setup goes for getting into a game. And now what I'm going to start is showing you how I set up Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. It's your favorite. It's my favorite. It's everybody's favorite. It's the new version from Cephalofair, a slimmed down version of Gloomhaven. I love Gloomhaven. I played the hell out of that. So, of course, I picked up a copy of this as soon as it was available. And it's fairly complex. There's a lot of components. There's a lot of cards. There's little chits, there's minis, there's standees, and what I want to show you today is how we set up for that game specifically. And if you want to see a version of us playing this game, the team played it a few weeks ago. It's up on our YouTube channel. We play through scenario 1, spoiler free. You can just sort of see how a game actually works. And then I'm going to be running Jaws of the Lion as part of Gen Con. It's sold out already, so apologies. It looks like we need to increase the volume a little bit. Sorry, JB boy. Let me know if that maybe makes it a little bit better. Okay, so the first things first. Over to my left, as I said, is the actual physical game. So I have Jaws of the Lion over here. I have a bunch of the components. I have the actual board, which is a book for Jaws of the Lion. So I have it unfolded to the first scenario. And then I need to bring in a character for Mike. And to bring in a character for Mike, that's a lot of stuff that I need to get in. I need to get some cards in. I need to get a character mat in. I need to get a mini in. All sorts of cool stuff, right? So thing number one that I'm going to show you is how we mount a camera above the board. And so what you can see, hopefully you can see this, is that we have an arm that's mounted to the table that holds a smartphone at the end of the arm. And the smartphone runs our app, which is running right now on this screen. And then as soon as I connect to the session, which I've already connected from this phone, all I have to do is hit start streaming, and then this camera here is going to bring in my board camera so that Mike and I can both see it at the same time. I'm going to move it up a little bit, and there we go. Right, so I'm going to move it over so we can see it. I'm going to size it up a little bit, and you'll be able to see things that I do in Vorpal kind of as we go here. I'm going to move Mike a slight bit, and there we go, right? So this is a live camera feed. It comes in at a very high resolution at a lower frame rate, so you can see that it's a little bit framey. But the cool thing about this video is we can actually hover our mouse over it and zoom in anywhere on the video that we need to. So if you're playing a game that you need to actually be able to read things on the board, like I can actually read the text on these cards right here, this Vermling Raider. And this is just using my smartphone. It's a Google Pixel 3. We run on Android, we run on iOS, and you can get this type of video quality for your games with that much setup. Literally, that's it. We include an arm to mount to your table in the product that we did on Kickstarter. But if you have your own hardware to mount the arm, you might be able to do that. But essentially, with our smartphone app, you can mount above the board. You can, and for a lot of games, you'd be done, right? If you're playing a game where all Mike has to do is point to what he wants to do with his pointers, we'd be able to start playing right away. If we're playing a game where the cards are heads up and there's no secrecy required, I could be flipping over cards on my end, and Mike would be able to follow along with the game. We could have multiple players in here. We'd be communicating. We'd be pointing, etc., etc. Gloomhaven is not that game. So there's a lot more complicated stuff that happens in Gloomhaven, so we're not going to be able to stop right here. But if you were playing something basic, you're playing Codenames, you were playing Wavelength, you're playing Pandemic, to be honest, because most of the cards are face up in Pandemic. You could play it that way. Just this much, mounting the camera, starting a video, being able to do the zoom, gets you a long way to doing some basic games very, very, very quickly. So that's kind of option number one. All right, so let's start talking about components. Components in Vorpal board, you can think of as anything that you need to get into this game session to move around, interact with, trade, flip over, rotate. It's cards, it's cardboard tokens, it's health trackers, it's Mike, what else? What else we got? Standees, minis, anything you can think of, right? Stuff you need to get that's physical, and you need to get it into the game so you can share it with the other players so they can have a good time. And the way that we do that is kind of twofold. One, in the super basic sense, you can take pictures with your phone, you can crop them down, you can bring them into the game. And I'm going to show you some of that in a little bit. You can find PNGs online, you can find JPEGs online, you can bring them into the game, and then you can interact with them, you can zoom on them, all those sorts of things. But the more exciting, I feel, because I'm on the team, the more exciting, cool way to bring stuff in is using what we call our card scanning box. And the scanning box is actually on the James cam over here too. It's sitting right next to all the stuff, but I'm going to pick it up so I can show it a little bit bigger. It's made out of wood, leather, rivets, and essentially the idea behind the scanning box is it's kind of like a desktop scanner. You open up the top here, and anything you put face down on this glass will be scanned from below. And the way that it's scanned from below is that a smartphone sits inside the box, pointing upwards. And that's what I'm going to show right now. I'm going to start scanning in some components into this session. Now, the phone that I'm using for all the card scanning is a Galaxy S8. We work back onto all sorts of older phones. A lot of the testing we do is back into the Galaxy S5, S6, iPhone 5. We try to run on as much hardware as we can, but we're going to be obviously beholden a little bit to the platform holders in that regard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to our session. You'll be able to see how long this takes. Just got to type in, you can't see it, we covered it up so people don't join into the session while we're playing, but there's a code you type in, and when you type in that code, you can connect the phones in. I don't want people to have the code because then we're going to get unintended guests. All right. And I know for folks who are in the Discord, I'm not talking about you guys. You're the best. I know none of you would storm our live session here and mess with us. All right, so I'm going to start some scanning. And all I'm going to do, so on the James cam you'll see, right? I have the box here. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to one after another take these starting cards for the Hatchet class. And I'm going to put them in the box. And then they're going to start appearing into Vorpal. And Mike's going to grab them and start moving them over. And we like to say that the scanning process takes about a second. It can be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But that's generally how long we see. So, I can hammer through these. The starting class, I think, starts with 6 cards in scenario 1 for Gloomhaven, so you can kind of see my hands moving these over and scanning them in. How are those cards looking, Mike? Pretty good?
Yeah, not bad.
All right, cool.
Pretty awesome.
So the cards, as you can see, this is important. The cards, as you can see, they come in face down. So these ones right here are face down. And the benefit of that is when me as a local player, if I take a card and I want to keep it secret, I don't want anybody else who's playing the game to know what it is, I can take it off a deck and keep it face down. I can put it in the scanning box face down, and then I can take it out of the scanning box face down, so I never know what it is. When it comes into Vorpal, it's face down. This is a card back right here. And in order to flip it, I just double-click it, and then it flips over, right? And so now we can, I guess what I'm saying is that we can maintain secrecy between the local players and the remote players. So Mike could own that card if he wanted, and I'm going to ask him to actually pick up one of these cards. So Mike, you want to pick up this for me? We're going to show you what that looks like. All right, so Mike picked that card up, and what you'll notice is there's a little colored icon below it. And the colored icon indicates Mike's color. And Mike is blue. I'm green in this game. And I'm pointing at Mike, I'm pointing at my monitor over here. I'm losing my mind. Yeah, I'm pointing. Sorry, you guys can't see it. So Mike's blue and I'm green. So you can see that this blue icon means it's owned by him. The important thing is that means he can see it. It flips over on his side, but it doesn't flip over on my side. So I'm going to pick this card up just to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to pick up. And you see, I can now see this card. And you guys at home can see this card as well, but Mike can't. And that's how we maintain secrecy. This is a game that we don't have to maintain secrecy. There is battle goals for folks who have played Gloomhaven. So there is a tiny, tiny bit of secrecy where individual players might have their own battle goals. And so that's how we would do that. In scenario 1, there are no battle goals, so we're not going to scan any battle goals. So Mike, I'm going to drop this card. Then you can flip it over. All right, so that's step number 1. I need to get Mike's cards in, his starting cards. This is a good moment to pause and answer probably a question that are in people's minds. Does all this stuff get saved? And the answer is yes. So the work that I'm doing right now to scan in components, that stuff actually is maintained across sessions. So I only have to scan it in once. The next time Mike and I get together, I can actually load the game from my phone. And when I load the game from my phone, all those components pop in automatically. And you can have as many save games as you want on your phone. And so you could have multiple campaigns going. You could have a betrayal campaign going. You could have a pandemic setup. You could have all sorts of stuff. But once you scan it in one time, it's saved. You don't have to be scanning it in every single time. So this prep work you're seeing today is kind of a once type thing. All right, so the next thing I need to bring in is the character mat. And in Gloomhaven, the character mats look like this. So they're a little bit bigger than a card. And this character mat is slightly bigger than our card scanning box. It just barely does not fit into the card scanning box. So I'm going to show you how I bring in a component like this into the game. And the way that we do that is we ship with the system a card scanning sheet. It's this neon pink color, which lets you take bigger stuff and put it on the card scanning sheet, point your phone at it like you're scanning your checks or something, other apps that, automatically detect faces, stuff like that. It will detect the component and bring it in, which I'm going to do right now. Okay. So there you go, Mike. There's your player mat. So let's take a look at it. Let's see how we did. I'm going to zoom in on it real quick. And you can see kind of the quality that we're able to bring in off the photos. So I'm just zooming in on this one card. I'm going to zoom in on some of these other cards. This is real-time scanning. This isn't stuff that we've brought in the past. I'm doing it kind of live right now. With the goal being that you can very easily bring in high-quality assets without having a ton of work, without having to do anything on your computer. You can kind of just do it live while you're playing. All right, so I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. Okay, so this is another good spot to pause, and I could say, all right, now we could play. We could play Gloomhaven right now. We don't need to go any further if we didn't want to. If we were willing to, I could be putting the minis out on the board, right? And Mike could be saying, oh, I want to move my hatchet here, 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 and telling me where I want to go, and I could move it, right? And we could play the game that way, and that's totally fine. It works great. If you have multiple local players, that works really well. My wife and I play a remote game of Gloomhaven where we're both sitting at the board, and the remote players are telling us where they want to go, and we're moving the pieces around and all that sort of stuff. It's great. But we want to, for the demo today, go even further and show some other cool stuff. And so the next thing that I'm going to show is bringing in something that's a little bit more complicated than just rectangular cards. And what I'm going to bring in is I'm going to bring in the standees for the enemies. So if you've ever played Gloomhaven, one of the things that you need to be able to do is identify which enemy is which. And in the view that we have right here, when I zoom on it, you can see that you can like barely see the number. There's a little number on that guy. And so you can barely see what Vermling is that, right? So if we need to track that Vermling's health, that's going to be difficult. But I'm going to show you how you can do something really cool. So here we go. I'm going to bring that Vermling into the game. Let's see if I turn scanning back on. I had not. So, all right, so I'm going to bring that Vermling right into the game by the magic of the card scanning box. So flip them over, Mike. Okay. So let's take a look at that Vermling. So how'd we do? Pretty good, right? So it automatically detected that there was something in the scanning box. It cut it out for us. It's easy to read it. It is ready to drop into the game, and it kind of looks like an actual piece, right? So if I'm going to shrink it down a little bit so maybe it looks exactly the same size. And if I put that Vermling right there, and then let's take the real thing and sort of put it next to it, we're doing okay, right? So as a remote player, you can actually sit here, and it looks like you're playing on the board, right? You have little minis you can move around. There's a physical element to this that feels more like you're sitting at the table because you can see all the actual pieces. You can see my hands moving. You can see the components that are not digital moving around. And I could go through all of the minis that I would need for this session and quickly scan them in. And then they'd be ready for us to use entirely digitally. And that can work for pretty much any size. Anything I want to bring in, even if it's 3D, I can drop it in the box and blam, it's in the game, right? So, all right, non-rectangular shapes, good to go. The scanner can bring them in. Everything looks good. Now, let's say we wanted to do minis. All right, let's say I wanted to bring Mike's hatchet mini in. And Mike's hatchet mini is very cool looking. So let's see. Let me find it. I'm losing my mind here, Mike. Here it is. So here's the hatchet mini. He's got kind of like a cloak on. He's got a cool hat. I think he's an inox or something close because he's got 3 horns. And so I'm going to put it in the box, and I'm going to have the box attempt to scan it. And we're going to see if we're happy with the results. Let's take a look, Mike. It's pretty close, okay? It's not perfect. I'm going to be the first to admit that it didn't do a perfect job of cutting out all the little pieces of this mini, right? There's little pieces of the cape and stuff that aren't perfect. If I zoom in on him again, it kind of scrunched it down. It cut too much off. Now, if you were okay with that and you were kind of like quick and dirty getting stuff into the game just so people could move it around and tell what's going on, maybe that's totally fine, right? But this is Gen Con online seminar stuff, Mike, right? We're not going to stop. We're not going to
Let's
stop
do
with
better.
Yeah, we're not going to stop with this garbage scanned in mini. We're going to go crazy, right? So I'm going to delete this mini. You get that guy out of here. And then I'm going to show you a cool flow for getting really, really high quality assets into the game if you choose that's how you want to do it. All right, so here's how I'm going to do it. First thing I'm going to do is show off a feature of Vorpal, which is I can actually screen share from my device into Vorpal. So I have the Vorpal app running on this phone, and I'm going to start a screen share, and we're going to give it a second to connect. And here we go. This is our screen share. And when he connected, we actually moved Mike's camera down a little bit. I apologize, Mike. Okay, so this is a live window of my phone. And you can zoom in on it just like anything else. This is what's running on my phone right now. And so you'll see that it's kind of pulsing live on my phone, and you can see it in the app here. The reason that we have this implemented is if you want to use a app-powered game and you want to share that app to your remote players, you can do so. So if Mike and I were playing, and if you play Gloomhaven, you probably are familiar with, and I was shaking my camera so much that it changed the orientation of my camera, which starts the stream over again. I apologize. My arm motions were too wild there. Okay, so if you're playing Gloomhaven, an app I use all the time is Gloomhaven Helper, right? I don't want to have to keep track of the health manually of all the characters on the board, right? Or any game might have an app-powered game. Journeys in Middle Earth, Descent. It's kind of like the way all these things are going in terms of the board game industry, right? So let's say I wanted to have Mike be able to see that, and I know I'm going on a tangent here a little bit because I was going to tell you about how to do bringing in minis, but I apologize. We're going to do this one tangent. I swear, that's it. So you can see that you see everything that's on my phone. Luckily, this is a development phone, so you can't see any of my secrets. And then I'm going to start Gloomhaven Helper. All right, so Gloomhaven Helper is now running on my phone. Mike can see my instance of Gloomhaven Helper. He can zoom in on it, just like any other video that we share into a Vorpal session. I'm going to move my camera down here. When we brought in the phone, it shifted stuff around. And then I can actually be using Gloomhaven Helper locally as we're playing Gloomhaven. I can be changing the health of guys. I can be hurting enemies. I can do all the good stuff that you do in that app. And then it's going to update, you can see on the screen, as I'm hitting the enemy and taking health off. And Mike can actually use this to keep track of enemies on his end or on this end. It's up to you. That's kind of our goal, is that as a player, you have a lot of options to use all our tools. One of them is screen sharing. All right, so there's Gloomhaven Helper. And for anybody who's in the chat, if you have questions and I'm going too fast, jump in and slam me about it, because we're trying to fit everything kind of in an hour. But definitely, if I'm blowing past some stuff, shout at me. All right, so I'm going to switch back over to Vorpal. And then the reason that I started this screen share is I wanted to show you a cool way to bring in miniatures. So let's say that you want to bring in a fancy looking miniature. You play D&D and you have something that you painted and you care about, right? This is how people who love games, it's what it is. I paint my miniatures. I'm awful at it, but I do it because I think it actually makes the table look a lot cooler. And let's say I want to bring those in and let Mike interact with them. I'm going to show you how I do that. So I use an app. We didn't develop this app. This is just an app I found. You don't have to use this app, but this is an app. I'm going to show you a cool way to do it. I use an app called Background Eraser. And what Background Eraser does is I'm able to actually, I'm just going to show you my workflow here. I take a photo of the mini, right? So there's my photo of my Hatchet mini right there. He's just sitting on a white piece of paper, right? And I use this flow, and essentially all you have to do is crop it down a little bit. And then you can remove the background. And then once you remove the background, and I'm just zooming through this fast, but essentially you can choose spots on the image to kind of erase based on some logic. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to, oh, you know what? We don't want to keep that little tiny, see that little tiny bit of background between his legs? We're going to get rid of that too. So you can actually see through behind his legs. There we go. Cool. Okay, so once I'm done with that, you're going to see that I end up with a transparent PNG. And if you think back to the beginning of the stream, I was talking about bringing in transparent PNGs into Vorpal. And this is a great example of bringing a transparent PNG into Vorpal. And so I'm going to jump back over to the Vorpal board app. I'm going to stop streaming so you guys can't see any secret information on my phone anymore. And then I am going to add that cool image that I just created. I'm going to add it right into our game. And you're going to get to take a look at it. So take a look at this guy. So there it is. I brought in a really, really nice quality mini that you can actually drag around on screen, right? So you could scan in all the minis that you want for the game you're playing, and then the remote players and the local players can actually sit here and move around their own pieces using a hybrid of a digital solution, digital tabletop, with a live video behind it. And as I've been saying a lot, this you might think, and you might think, oh, that seems like a lot of setup. I don't want to do all those little kind of bits. And our goal is to not have you have to do all those little bits. You can start and do it really basic, and you can say, oh, I had a good time playing, but I'm not going to set it all up because I only do this once a month with my friends. But if this is something you do a lot, you might want to set up everything, get it into the system, and be done with it, and everybody can move around their minis if your party is going to be separated, or maybe your party's across the country. This is an investment of, so far, we've been going for 28 minutes, and I've been talking the whole time, so it's not a huge time investment to sort of get stuff built into the system. The last bit that I wanted to talk to in terms of other Gloomhaven-y type setup is counters. So obviously in Gloomhaven, a big need is the ability to track health, the ability to track experience, the ability to track enemy health, a lot of different tracking stuff. And so the way that we do that is with counters. What we call, I mean, we're really good at naming. Great job, Mike. Great job, James. We love naming stuff. And the way that we do counters is incredibly simple. So all the components that you bring into the game have the capability to be turned into a counter. And what I mean by that is just because it's a card or a cube or a little component or whatever, you might not want to have to make a bunch of copies of them and deal with it inside Vorpal. You might want to just say, I have 5 of those and I want to keep track of those just with a little up and down arrow, essentially. And that's how it works. So I'm going to show how I do that. I went on the internet and I downloaded a heart image. And I just brought it into the game. It's just a transparent PNG, very boring, but it'll do the trick. And I have a heart image here. And all I need to do is right click on it, and there's an option to toggle counter. So I toggle the counter, I get an up arrow and a down arrow. This is shared between all players, so my starting health, or actually, sorry, Mike, in our scenario, this is you. Your starting health is 8. So now we have a starting health. As the game goes on, Mike can track his own health. He can track his own experience. This is something that your remote players can do. It makes it more engaging for the remote players to be able to sort of control their own stuff instead of pointing at the table and saying, hey, can you increase my health by 1? Or even worse, kind of writing it on their own end. We like to try to keep everything inside the system if we can, just so it's easy for people. And so that's how we would do counters. We'd have a heart, we'd have an experience counter. Mike would keep track of it himself. Every player keeps track of it for themselves, and it works really well. So there we have counters. One thing I wanted to show that I actually blew by a little bit ago, I'm going to circle back a little bit, is scanning in really small stuff. So Gloomhaven has lots of little things. There's all sorts of little doohickeys in this game. It's a lot less in Jaws of the Lion than it was in the original, but there's still a lot of stuff. And one of the things there is that there's little tiny circular tokens for each character. They have their own little tiny tokens, and you use these things to place on cards and keep track of things. And so those types of things we can scan them in. So let's see. That one might have popped in already, way quicker than I even thought. There it is. Yeah. So now Mike has the little hatchet token. If he wants to, he can make copies of that. That's something we haven't talked about in the past. But any component, I can always click on it. I can click the options, and I can actually duplicate it, and then we get copies of the same component. You can make multiple copies of a component if you want to have a big pile of little chits. You don't have to scan in each individual component as long as they're the same. So even these little tiny, one of the things we get asked a lot is like, how good is the scanning stuff, right? So even if I bring in like a tiny little thing, is it going to look good when we bring it into the game? And we're really confident in the scanning technology that we've built for this system, that you're going to be able to bring things into the game that even are small, even are irregular. We've played tons and tons of stuff on this system. This one is just a little sign that says hatchet, and Mike can have that over here. You use that to track your initiative order. So you can bring in stuff like that. I didn't want to blow by and only show bringing in cards. You can scan in all sorts of crazy stuff. We've played dozens of games and scanned in all manner of very bizarrely shaped components. So, as a user of the system, you can be really confident that you'll be able to get kind of whatever you need into the platform. Okay, so a couple other things that usually I do if I was hosting a game on Vorpal board of Gloomhaven is I actually use dice to track enemy health. So you could do this stuff in the system. We could have a little health tracker. We make it copies for the health trackers for each of the enemies. But I actually tend to like to do it this way. It gives the local player some physicality. It gives a little bit of depth more to the board. But that's how I normally do it. It makes it so people can more easily see because you use the dice instead of the little cubes. But it's just a little trick that I use to, if I need to track anything that's a number locally, that's generally how I do it. The final piece of the puzzle, this is a big one, is decks. So in Gloomhaven, the deck concept that we have is attack modifier decks. So every character has a 20-card attack modifier deck. The monsters have them as well. It's this deck right here, and it has a subset of cards. It's kind of the randomization tool for Gloomhaven that it has, minus ones, minus twos, anything like +1, -1, 0. So when you do an attack, your attack can be modified a little bit by these attack modifier decks. And you're probably asking yourself, oh, is there a way for us to build decks inside Vorpal board? And the answer is yes. Would you have guessed, Mike, that the answer to that question was yes?
Should have said no.
No, you can't do it. But the one thing I'll throw out there is for folks who don't know anything about our software, it's currently in beta. It's currently in development. We finished the Kickstarter earlier in the year. Our shipping target is September. So what we're showing off today is not 100% done. And Dex is one of those things that we're in kind of our first pass on. And I'm going to show you how it works today real quickly, which is cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Mike's deck. So this is the Hatchet attack modifier deck. And so the Hatchet attack modifier deck has a lot of duplicates of the same cards. It's got 5 -1s. It's got 6 zeros. It's got 5 +1s. And the way that we do this is really easy. So I'm going to scan in each unique card that's in this deck. I'm not going to scan in all 20 cards. I'm just going to scan in the unique ones. So as I do it, Mike's going to grab them. So there you go, Mike. That should be -1. I need 5 of those. And so Mike is using our automated copying capabilities to make quick copies of the cards. So Mike, I need 6 of those zeros.
I got to make sure to subtract 1, right?
Oh, yeah, because you have the original. Yeah, okay. And then I need 5 of those 1s that I just scanned in. So I need 5 total of those. And then I just need 1 of these +2s, so you don't need to copy that one. You don't need to copy this. This is the miss. This is the -2. You don't need to copy this. And you don't need to copy this 2x. So you can see that as a user, this isn't taking me a lot of time to do the scanning. The cards come in quickly, right? And so I'm done with that deck. Now Mike has made this big pile of cards, right? There they all are up there. I'm going to grab them all. I'm going to move them down here. So there, we have our big all our 20 scanned in cards, right? So I'm going to select all 20 of these. I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to say, I'm going to add to a new deck. All right, there we go. They all disappear and they're all now part of this deck. Yeah, Filbert66. Mike didn't know the James Cam was up there. So the cards were hidden by the James Cam. So this is the deck now. It's got a green back. We'll probably make it look a little bit more thick in the future, but the graphics pass through. The graphic design team hasn't dove in to make a pass on it yet. But the concept of a deck is it holds all those cards. And if I right click on this deck, I have a couple options. I can draw a card directly to my hand. I can draw it to the table. I can return all the discard pile. And here we go. I'm going to draw to hand. So the first card I drew is a +1, right? I can also shuffle here, everything that's in the deck. I probably should have done that to start with. So I'll do a quick shuffle. And then I can keep drawing cards right out of here. And then once I'm done, I can discard them. Discard them, right? And then I can keep drawing. I can draw through my entire deck. These cards then become interactable components. Mike could grab them, I could trade them. Obviously, in Gloomhaven, that doesn't make sense. But when I'm done with them, I can discard them. And then when I get all the way through the deck in Gloomhaven, when you hit a miss, let's see, I'm gonna draw till I hit a miss. Let's see, gang, when do I get a miss? Come on, give me that. Give me a 2x or a miss. Wow, this is a bad streak. There we go. All right, so I hit a miss. So when you hit a miss, you reshuffle your deck. So I'm going to discard all these cards. I'm going to return the discard pile to the stack, and then I'm going to do a shuffle, and then I can start over right again, right? So as a remote player, Mike now has total agency to draw his own attack modifier cards. I don't do it for him. He can draw his own, and he can know kind of his own stuff, which if you've ever tried to play a remote board game, the having to communicate what you're doing on the table to the remote players slows a lot of stuff down because normally everybody's doing things at the same time. But if I'm over here and I need to tell Mike, okay, Mike, I'm flipping your card, he's got to wait until he sees it. We can't do it at the same time. It just kind of is a real time sink. But once we have decks in the system, Mike can now handle his own stuff. He can handle flipping cards. He can handle shuffling. He can handle the discard, all that sort of stuff. There was a question in chat, which is a good question. Is there a way to view the discard pile? And the answer is soon. Right now, there isn't a way to view the discard pile, but there will be. That's kind of one of the things that is still part of the development part. The other thing is, can we support card backs? And the answer to that is we will support card backs as well. So you could make a deck with a back instead of our custom back. Obviously, there are games that the different piles have different backs, and we want to be able to support that fully. Okay, so that's the decks. Now, the cool thing about all this stuff that we've built, right, is that this set over here that you see on the right-hand side of the screen, all this stuff, right, now is done for Mike. If we're playing Gloomhaven, every time I call him and I say, hey, Mike, you want to play some Gloomhaven? All that stuff you watched me do, I don't do again. It's already stored on my phone. The next time I connect to a session, it pops in, and then we can just get going playing. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop scanning on this phone, and I'm going to disconnect my phone, and you'll see what's going to happen. Oh no, all our work is gone. Everything's gone. So we got to start over, right? So all the cards are gone, all the decks are gone, all that sort of stuff. But if from this phone, from my save game, I reconnect, we're going to get a little pop-up that tells us we're refreshing cards. And then it's just going to load all the stuff we already did. And it not only is it just going to load it, it's going to load it back exactly where it was. So, the next time we sit down, Mike's stuff is right where he was. He's used to playing it. He knows where it sits. It actually, and this is going to sound crazy and sound kind of salesy, but in a lot of cases, it ends up being faster when a remote player joins than if a real human being walked down the stairs to my basement and sort of sat down and said, like, oh, I got to get all my junk set up, because they got to go through their tuck box and find all their cards and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, Mike joins the game. All his stuff blows in. He's ready to go. The only time I need to make any changes is if his character levels up, right? So I need to add some cards to the deck. I need to give him some new loot that he got in between sessions. And that's as easy as just scanning it into your saved game, and then you keep rolling. Now, when we're playing, the way generally we play is all of us can very easily move these enemies around, move our minis around, and critically, I mentioned this earlier, but the critical part is now when we zoom in on these enemies, when Mike says, I want to attack this one right here, he knows, because he can see, that this is enemy number 6. So he knows how many health this enemy has by looking over and saying, oh, enemy, if you're unfamiliar with Gloomhaven, this card right here keeps track of the health for all the enemies. So he knows that enemy 6, which is this one, has 5 health right now because this zone is for enemy 6. He can do all that without asking anybody anything. He doesn't have to ask me. He doesn't have to say, hey, what's that on the board? All that sort of stuff. Those kind of really difficult parts about playing board games with video remotely are all completely taken away. He can handle that all himself, and it feels much more fluid that he is handling his own stuff, we're handling our own stuff on this end, and we can kind of play through the entire game that way. Good question from Jay Schulters. Is it possible to turn off the zoom feature on the mouse pointer? Yes, it is. So right down here, there's a button. It's called the hover zoom. It's a toggle. You can turn it off. So now anywhere my mouse goes, it's no longer doing the hover zoom. And then I've shown a couple times this close-up zoom, this kind. Um, this is triggered by the spacebar. So anytime I hold the spacebar, anything my mouse is over will get really big. And so this is a nice way where you can keep your screen clear by not having the hover zoom. But then if you need to get a good look at something, like maybe you need to look at how much starting health you have down here at the bottom, you can just hit the spacebar and boom, you're ready to go. We're still, it would be a valid question to ask, hey, are you and Mike sure that you want to have the default zoom be the hover zoom? The answer is no, we're not sure. That might change a little bit because we're in a live beta right now, and we get a lot of feedback regularly. Thank you to anyone who's in chat. Thank you from the beta users. Your feedback is great. Thank you for working with us through this process. So we're getting a lot of feedback about defaults and keyboard shortcuts. We have a lot of keyboard shortcuts in the system. Things like, I can R to rotate. I can D to duplicate. I can hit delete to delete. All that sort of stuff. So we're going to be building more shortcutty type stuff because if you are watching this for the first time, you might think, there's a lot of clicking going around here. And for the basic user, that's right. But once you kind of know the system, you can zoom around in here really, really fast. Okay, so that kind of closes up the Gloomhaven portion of this conversation. We have all the stuff that we need. We have Mike's action cards. We have his character sheet. We have trackers. We have all the stuff that he would need. We have it saved in the game, right? One thing that we haven't discussed at all is dice. Excuse me. And the reason we haven't talked about dice is that Gloomhaven very famously does not have dice. And the reason that Gloomhaven doesn't have dice is because they use the modifier deck. A good question just came in from Cubson J, and I'm gonna answer it. I swear. Just give me a second. I do want to talk about that. Okay, so let's talk dice real quick. We have a dice roller in the system. It rolls 3D dice on top of the tabletop. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show that real quick. So I'm going to expand the dice. First, I'm going to hide the James Cam because it's covering up some of the screen of some stuff I want you to see. All right, James Cam is hidden. So up here in the top corner, we can open up the dice drawer. If you click on that die, you get this dice drawer. The only dice that I'm showing off for today are normal polyhedral, D&D style dice, but also D6s and normal D10s and stuff. So I'm going to add all of them to my game. In the future, this dice drawer will have more in it where you can search for different dice for different games. But right now, we just have the only thing we're showing off is the polyhedral dice. So I'm going to add them all to the game. I'm going to click Done. Now, what that gives me is a little, what we call hotbar over here on the left-hand side. And what the hotbar is it gives you a quick way to roll any dice you've added to the game. So any of these dice that I click on, I can now roll, right? So if I click on this D20, hooray, 18, pretty good roll, right? Mike sees that on his end too. So I click, he sees the exact same roll over on his end. Mike, you want to go ahead and roll something? There we go. Do something more interesting than that. Uh-oh. I heard a lot of clicking there. Oh, okay. So a lot of D20s, right? You can mix and match. The results window that pops up at the bottom will show you a sum total. It'll group it by dice type. If you're a D&D player, you might need it split that way. Every single roll that you'll see today, it uses our player color. So if me and Mike both roll at the same time, Mike, let's do it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, roll. All right, so I rolled the greens, Mike rolled the blues. You can tell who's rolling, right? Which is important. But you will be able to specify for game-specific dice, if you're playing something like Descent or Root or whatever, you can say, oh, no, I want the dice to be red or blue or black or whatever, and not have them tied to the player color. So that's the way that the dice roller looks. In the future, you'll be able to build your own custom dice using a dice builder that you can specify what each face is and the color of the painting of each face. So the icons can be different colors. We want to be able to support as many games as we can, so the users will be able to build their own dice and have them in the system. All right, so that's dice. Mike, did I miss anything?
No, I think when we get a chance here, let's go back to a couple questions from chat. So one is, why not use something like Tabletop Simulator? We'll start with that.
It's a great question. So I get that question a lot. So like, what are you doing? Why did you build this thing, right? And the answer for me personally is kind of twofold. One, I place a lot of value in actually using the physical stuff. I know that we moved a lot of the things to digital here to show off kind of Gloomhaven, but like when I play Gloomhaven with a remote player, I sit at the table and I actually move the stuff around most of the time. I let them connect in and I will give them their cards. But I don't usually play with the minis and the enemies scanned in like this unless everybody's remote. Because when I play, a lot of the times I have multiple locals, and the multiple locals is something that I had a real hard time pulling off or feeling good about in some of the other digital platforms. And what I mean by that is I like opening my game, putting it on my table, having my wife or my friends sit with me, and then maybe one person is dialing in or two people are dialing in. A great example is I played through the entire campaign of Journeys in Middle Earth in this basement with my brother down in New York City, who's on quarantine, who has been even more quarantined than I am. And we played through the whole thing as if he was sitting here, and we just used all the physical components. He just had his deck, and he would connect in. The other big thing that I found, I a lot of the games I wanted to play weren't necessarily on Tabletop Simulator, Tabletopia, any of the digital platforms. So getting games that I can just take down off my shelf and quickly get rolling with them was a problem. And then the third thing was that I don't know how everybody out there. I think I said two things, but I'm going to change it. I have a third thing. The other thing that I had a hard time with was convincing my players and friends to really jump in with 2 feet into getting Steam, installing, buying and installing an application, and then learning how to use that application. Our goal here is to make getting into this for a remote player essentially as easy as getting into just like a Google Hangout. I send the link to Mike, he joins in, he doesn't need an account, he doesn't need to install anything, it's just in his browser, and he's in and he can play with us. And so it was simplicity, what games were on it, and then the ability to do the mix and match of local players and remote players was a huge deal for me. Just the way that I play board games, I really prefer to actually play the physical thing, and maybe maintain some of the physical contact locally with players. So hopefully that answers it for why we kind of headed in this direction.
So the next question was save states. Can we go back to a save state for games so we can, play those games over and over again?
We can, yeah, we can. And so there's a couple different ways that we do that. We can save state in the game right here, and we can say put everything in a spot. And you can create essentially layout saves where you save everything in a place and then you can recall those layout saves with a keyboard combination. You also can on the phone create and save your content and then use that content in future games. So our goal being that you set it up once, you save it as we don't have really a name for it yet. You can tell we're really good at naming stuff. A set essentially or a game box, and then you can create a new game and sort of bring in those components as a template to start from, so that you're not at risk of blowing anything away or killing anything. The game box is safe, and this is just a game instance, which is an instance of the game box. That's kind of how we want things to work. So this, what I just did for Mike's Hatchet character, I would save as a game box, and then in the future I could create multiple sessions off of that if I chose. That's a real common example that I give for that is I use this to play Codenames a lot. I have a sort of a regular Codenames game with a couple other couples, and we always just want to start from the same spot, which is having all the little red and blue tokens all lined up and nice, and we know where everything is. So that would be saved as a game box or set, and then you would start from that game set. So yeah, you can save things in that way. Yep. How many players can it handle? Good question. That's from Winchrilly Softfoot. So the player question is a tricky one, and the reason it's tricky is that it's very, very variable on a lot of the end user stuff. So the speed of their machine, the quality of their internet, and then exactly what type of game you're playing and how many video cameras you have set up and all that sort of stuff. We're trying to be really flexible. We do not put a limit on it currently, and that doesn't mean that might not change in the future, but we have people who are playing with 7 players, who are playing like D&D with 7 people, 8 people. Generally, our games, my personal games, are like 4 to 5 remote players, but also, obviously one-on-one. So we don't put a limit, but where you're gonna hit a limit is if you're running on like a really, really old machine, or you're on internet that's very, very spotty. There are some things you can do to mitigate those situations. Like Mike can turn his camera off. So, like, Mike, go ahead and turn your camera off. Which then allows him to essentially just be in an audio only call, right? So if he's on really bad internet and he can't maintain that connection, he can turn off his video. I can turn off my video, and now we're just doing audio, right? So a lot of that data no longer is having to be sent back and forth. What really matters is like the board data, and that's what we care about. So I guess what long-windedly, what I would say, recommended player count for like really reliable, not having anybody drop, being able to play on pretty much consumer grade internet is in like the 4 to 5 range. Once you start getting up there, you just need to make sure that your players have good machines, have good internet, have enough horsepower to kind of handle it. Hopefully that answers the question, but if not, jump back in. Let's see. A question from Sir Lawrence of Arabia. To follow up on my previous question, how much does the streaming component cost? Is there a month, annual, lifetime sub? The answer is yes. There is a subscription, and here's the way the business works. Here's the way the tool is priced. The host needs a subscription. And so in this little sample we're doing, I'm the host. I have the game. I invited Mike to my session. I created the session. In order to create sessions, I need to have a host subscription. The host subscription is $5 a month or $50 a year. That's what our starting price point is. We are a brand new business, so there's always the chance that might slightly change, but we do not have any plans currently to have that be changing. So it's $5 a month for the host. They can call whoever they want into their session. What I want to be able, and I is maybe too strong, what we want to be able to allow is I want to play a game. I could call, and I want my daughter to play with, let's say, my mom. I want my daughter to play with her grandma. I want to be able to just call my mom and say, hey, here's a link, join in. She doesn't have to create an account. She doesn't have to pay anything. She clicks on the link and she's in. I'm giving that ability for her to play by having a subscription myself. So that's a subscription fee, $5 a month, $50 a year. And then the hardware that you saw, so the scanning box and the mounting arm. Now, we didn't talk too much about the mounting arm, but the mounting arm is it's essentially a table mount. It's got a clamp that'll screw onto the side of your table, hold. It's got a ball joint at the end of the arm, so you can swivel in 360 degrees, and then it has a cradle that holds the camera. It's extremely long, so that's one of the things that we really wanted to focus on. You guys are going to see the really, oh no, you're going to see the you're going to see the messy basement. But it's very long, and the goal being that I could get it really high and be able to have a real big table of stuff under here. So we had it down low, right? But if you're playing Journeys in Middle-earth or something like that, that might spread across your whole table. And we wanted to make sure that we could get the arm all the way up in the air so that you'd be able to handle that. So the arm and the box, the Kickstarter pledge for that was $75. And that kind of price point is where we want to be for the hardware pieces. And then the subscription would be $5 a month and $50 a year. All right, Mike, were there any other questions? Cubs and Jay, thanks for being a backer. I really appreciate it. For everybody who's in the chat who's a backer, a million thanks. This has been a really, in case you can't tell, I'm incredibly passionate about this project. Mike is super passionate about this project. This is something that we have poured a lot of, I guess, ourselves into over the last couple years. And then our third compadre is Thad Casey, who is in charge of the manufacturing and who is responsible for what is turning out to be an incredibly beautiful box. So this is actually one of the first off the production lines here. And the cool thing about it, I didn't even talk about it because I lose track of what I'm talking about. It comes apart. So the top comes off. There's a light puck inside to make sure that the components are really well lit. It just turns on when you click on it like that. That comes out. And then the box actually folds down flat. And so you can put it away. So it just goes really flat. You put it in a flat pack box. You can slide it into your closet. So the goal being that we don't have you keeping it on your desk all the time set up. So that's how that works. And that Thad Casey is in charge of that part of the business. Mike just mentioned it in the chat, but our target for shipping is in September, and we there are a lot of pieces like any Kickstarter project. There are a lot of pieces that are still in flux. There's things shipping from China. There's things shipping domestically. There's manufacturing to do. There's software changes to do. But right now, we're still on target for shipping in September. Um, Question about the glass. The glass is scratch resistant. Now, obviously, um, you know, you can break glass, right? But we're using a very specific glass that is reflection resistant. So let's see. So I have like a monitor in front of that, and it's kind of barely registering on the glass, and that's very important. So one of the pieces that was the hardest thing about this project was finding and sourcing a glass that was adequately scratch resistant, so you could start or you could drag cards off it. You could put junk in there and pull it off for years, right? And not scratch the heck out of it, but also be reflection resistant. And we found a glass that really fits both of those bills. It's a highly specific framing glass for archival framing. And so the glass should be good to go. You shouldn't be scratching it. You shouldn't be smashing it, unless, of course, you're getting in there and scratching it with your nail or putting metal things in there or something. But yeah, that's the story with the glass. What, Mike?
The amount of time you spent to try and find that glass
Yeah.
it's worth it. But man,
Yeah.
that was quite
Yeah.
the chore.
It really was. I found out a lot about how weird the glass industry is in terms of how you buy it. And how to you can't just like roll up on somebody and say like, hey, I'd like a box of your glass, sir. You need to have like a relationship with them, and be buying in a certain volume and stuff. So that was one of the things that doing the Kickstarter was extremely important for us, because a lot of these components that you see, it's not just stuff that we can put together in ones and twos. We need to be able to buy a lot of it, and so the Kickstarter was critical for us to do it. Let's see. I think that's it. Mike, did I cover it all? We're at 4:59. Could you believe it?
It's probably the first time we've ever been like even close to being on time for anything. So that's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
nicely done.
if you're interested in following us, the best place to start is just to go to vorpalboard.com. There's a big green button on the landing page right there if you're interested in a late pledge. So we are still accepting late pledges to be part of the initial Kickstarter. And so you can go and you can jump in still today if you were interested in doing so. But you can also follow us on Twitter at VorpalBoard, on Facebook at VorpalBoard, our YouTube channel. We usually generate 1, 2 videos a week, depending on what we got going on. Some D&D stuff, some board game stuff. That really just showing off features. One of the big things we try to do is like just generate a lot of proof, because one of the things in the software industry is always like, is it good, right? And so like the way we're trying to prove that it's good is just play in it and let people watch us play in it live. And so definitely, come and check out our Twitch channel. We stream once a week, usually on Tuesdays. And I think that's it. I really appreciate everybody coming. This is great. The questions are great. And we're super thrilled by everybody being excited about it, and we're just super thrilled to be part of the Gen Con Online process. So the other big thing that we have going on this weekend is an Unmatched tournament. So we're going to be playing Unmatched, which is an awesome game by Restoration Games. It's a one-on-one card battler, and we're going to be playing a 16-player tournament. They're going to play in Vorpal Board, and we're going to stream the semifinals and finals. The semifinals and finals will be on Sunday. If you probably signed up for this event on the Gen Con calendar, so you can find that event on the Gen Con calendar. It will be on our Twitch channel, and hopefully we'll get some cool battles in the semis and finals, and I'll kind of be emceeing that event. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming to our session. As usual, Mike, what's your final words, man? What do you got?
Um, Everything worked great, so I was ecstatic that we didn't have any technical difficulties. So well done.
No technical difficulties. Mike's breathing a sigh of relief because a lot of the the deck stuff is new in the last couple weeks, and then the counter stuff is pretty new in the last couple weeks as well. So yeah, happy everything performed well. So all right, everybody, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the questions, and take care and have a great rest of Gen Con.